I spent over $15,000 on a business that generated $68.52 in revenue. And the one place that my business is operating in shut down. But this is why I'm not giving up. Hey, it's Kerry, and for the last few episodes, we've been really getting deep into real estate and my adventures there with buying, improving, and renting out my first property. While that's going on, we actually had something we were doing in parallel that I'm going to get into today. In fall of 2023, while upgrading our rental property, I started my first real business with a partner. This week, we're really just going to dive into what that business is. And as a matter of fact, I had it in front of your face this whole time. It is about brick right here. So we were going to get into the launch of this business, which is a business of vending machines or portable phone chargers, and how I went from the initial idea to the launch of it to me losing the one venue I had to where I am today, and why I'm investing another $2,200 into brick in 2026 to make this all work. So I'm going to get back to this in a second. But let me just get to you guys about the inspiration behind this. So I have my friend Lyman, who I've been friends with since we were running track when we were like 6 or 7. And we were always talking about in high school about making multiple streams of income. And one way we were thinking about doing that is by starting franchises as a stream of income, because they should be able to be self-sufficient over time eventually. And the goal was just to really just make sure that we are diversifying our different streams of income so that we can make sure that we make it to be financially free, because we were always taught that a millionaire is going to have at least 7 streams of income. So the interesting thing, we just was doing our preliminary research and just kind of just looking about things casually, and we saw about the $10,000 that you could invest into Chick-fil-A to become a franchise owner with them. But the thing about that we saw was that franchise type of deal required us to work full time, in which neither one of us was very interested in working at Chick-fil-A full time. So it was just something that in my head, it kind of stuck with me, that $10,000 seems about reasonable to actually be the amount to invest in a low cost franchise. So on to me just Googling in my own time and just looking at low cost franchises, I actually stumbled across Brick right here. So when I stumbled across Brick, it was the same thing, right? Around $10,000 for the startup cost for Brick. And I was doing familiar research, or not even familiar, but similar research with other competitors. And there's another competitor called Recharge City, but I saw that they were mainly big in New York. But this company, Brick, is actually been global. They're in like 26 countries. They're in South America, they're in North America, they're in Europe. And it just seemed like they were a more established brand to go with. So I ended up going with Brick, as you can clearly see here. So the business model ended up working out to be that the customers can rent the portable chargers while they're at the venue. And then Brick handles everything. They handle having a mobile app, they handle payment processing, they handle customer service. And it just was really easy, because all I have to do is just be able to go to the venue owner and say, hey, is it okay to have this in your venue? And this will provide you a service that you don't have to maintain. And it's something that you can be able to ensure that your patrons stay a little bit longer, because you don't want your patrons to leave your establishment because their phone is dead. So this was the main way and how it would work. And then the other thing is the franchise itself is going to cost money. So Brick takes 30% off top, and then I get to keep everything else after that. After Stripe takes its fee as a payment processor, I think they're around 3%. So that ends up with me being like at 67% or so. And then if I decide to split revenue with the venue, then I would split it up to a certain percentage, but most likely I'm not going to really do this going forward. But on paper, in my head, it seemed very easy. This is something I got to put up the work to get the connections, to get the sale to close, and then put this in the venue. But after that, I'm pretty much done. Like if a charger not disappears, but goes bad, or somebody takes one here and there, I don't think it's that difficult to restock these. I don't think I'll be restocking these every week. So on my head, it was just very easy and straightforward. So on to the next thing, which was actually getting a partner, because I always talk with my friends about some of the ideas that I got going on, and I ended up talking with my friend Chaz. And Chaz is somebody like me who was in the tech field, and this was around 2022-ish, 2023 at the time. So both of us have been in our fields for at least a year, and we've been able to save up a little bit of money. So we also lived in like 2 different states, and this was a way where we could like split the cost of the franchise and then split the machines across both of us to have ourselves in 2 different markets, which will be great because now we get twice the amount of presence, but we still have the same startup costs. So what we ended up doing was creating 2 different LLCs. I had one for me, he had one for himself. My LLC was the one that interfaced with the brick franchisor. And what we ended up agreeing between us is like everything that we bring in, we would split the profits 50-50, and then we would also split the cost 50-50 as well. That was pretty much it, because the only other thing that I had to do was give him access to all of the logins that Brick gave us once they got us set up as a franchise partner. So on to the next step, we ended up signing with them in September 21st of 2023. We ordered 20 machines. 10 of them look like this. And then I have a 12 slot as well that we ordered 10 of those. And if you're interested in like what those look like, I have my website in the description so you can go take a look. And what I ended up doing is I ended up handling the order and shipping in the ordering between us and the franchise. And it was interesting because with the franchisor being Swedish, it was interesting to go through customs and actually see like the full end-to-end process of how shipping works. Very confusing, and it was interesting paying tariffs and seeing how all of that stuff works. So definitely interesting, not for the weak. But the machines were ordered around that September time, and they didn't come in till late November of 2023. As usual, I always got to give you guys the numbers, right? So I'm going to go ahead and read them again. This is the initial investment, the startup cost for 2023. So we ended up having to purchase the machines for $5,240. We had the shipments, and the tariffs costing us $3,814. We prepaid our liability insurance for 6 months, and that was $309. The network fees, so there's a network fee. This runs on the cellular reception, so there's a cost of that and a cost of maintaining the app that they have for us, and it's about $5 per machine or €5 per machine, and then you also have to have a group of 20 of those. And then there's also just the amount, because we paid it through Stripe, so there's just a couple of fees on top of that. But putting that all together for 6 months was $661. Then there's other miscellaneous costs like DocuSign, because we wanted to make sure that we had great documentation when it comes to agreements between venues, office supplies. So we put this sticker on here, and I also have this guy right here as well that we went ahead and shifted as well, so that when people see it from afar, you can see the sign here, and just other miscellaneous stuff that we had to do. But that was $180. And then the total altogether is $10,203. So we split that 50-50 roughly. And that ended up being $5,102 to start for 20 machines. And now we're all ready to rock and roll. And now that we're off to the races, the initial plan was for us to split them up 10 and 10 and be able to do 10 machines per our region. And our strategy originally was just go ahead and do some door-to-door sales. Don't see why somebody would really say no to this. It's free to them and it's a perk for their customers. And we can also do some emails here and there, or even reach out to venues on the phone doing cold calls. So the pitch was very simple, right? It's a free product for the venue. All you need to do is just provide us a tiny bit of space and a regular outlet. So we went on with this approach. We went door to door, we went to some restaurants. I went out to Deep Element in particular in Dallas, and I pitched to quite a few owners down there. And it was just interesting because it's like you get there at the wrong time, the owner's not there, and they're like, you gotta come back at this time, or you even get the owner, they're not interested for a variety of weird reasons. Like one of them told me, I don't want any brands in my restaurant. Another one told me, I don't want to charge a customer for something like that. And it's like, I'd rather just charge their phone behind the bar or something like that, which I could have said, well, we can offer a promotion period where it's like a free 30 minutes or something like that. Or if you really want to be that nice to your customers, you could just charge you a certain amount per month to make them free. And it was just interesting just hearing the different type of like processes and responses you get in sales. Just what something I necessarily wasn't prepared for. And it just showed me that even something that was just like a no-brainer to me wasn't the easiest thing to sell. And after like a month or two of this, we ended up pivoting. So me and Chaz got back together and we was like, how about we pivot to doing automated emails and doing it at a more scalable way, because me and Chaz are in tech. So obviously doing things automated is right up our alley. So we ended up setting up an automated email campaign with a couple of follow-up replies. And we did this through like a service called Apollo. And what we ended up seeing is like, we sent out these emails and I seen some people get really upset about us contacting them. Some people saying just, I'm not interested. And then we finally got one person that set up a call with us, and I got on this call and it was like, oh man, I thought this was something else, where it was like the wireless charger and the couch. And I was like, how is that remotely the same? I'm assuming you just clicked the wrong email. But it was just interesting because even with that approach, we just really didn't get nothing. I know with emails, you only get like maybe a 1% like response rate, and of that 1%, then you got a percentage of that would actually be interested. But it was just like, to me, it just didn't feel morally right to really still continuously try to like email people on these different lists, because they probably already get blasted already. So this is something where we just kind of was at a realization, like we're several months in, we got 20 machines that have still not been placed. And I think around this time, it's like we had the machines in November. It's like probably January, February-ish time. And we just had nothing going on, and we're still paying monthly fees around $110 to keep these machines online. And we just need to go with a different approach. So I had the bright idea of like, we're doing all of this cold outreach. Why not do warm outreach, right? So the idea was for me to host an event at my house, a launch event at my house, invite friends and family to see the business, and then just tap into my personal network of connections to get venues. And the second goal was really just to actually see the machine work, because we haven't even had the chance to place them, right? So I want to be able to see that this actually works and be able to see that people can enjoy the experience and see that it works for them. So I ended up catering this event. I also said on the flyer and made it very clear in the messaging, it's a $2 paid demo that's required, but I'm thinking in my head, I'm at least offering them like $6 to $8, not 6 to 8, like $8 to $15 worth of food. So hopefully it's okay. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt a little weird doing that, but I really did want to see like if the actual product worked, because I haven't even had the chance to do that. So I presented the business concept, and during that presentation, I also said that I'm offering a $25 referral bonus for anybody that can get me a referral that leads to a venue placement. And I just ended up asking if anybody had connections. I got good feedback. I got conversations sparked up with a couple people, and the results of that actually ended up being that my friend Kennedy Mays, who was close to a venue owner at the time, gave me a referral. And this was my like first real shot at actually talking to a business owner. And it was interesting because like after those 3 months of no's and just not getting any movement going, this was like really big to me, because it brought back that spark in my eyes to, you know, continue giving it a shot. And then on top of that, to move on a little bit from that, we ended up having about like $55.20 after paying Brick and Stripe of revenue from that event. Obviously that's skewed because I forced people to pay a little bit of money. But, you know, it was something that just showed that it worked, that they gave me the payout. I was able to pay Chaz out half of that revenue. And obviously we paid for catering. So obviously I didn't make really any money. I still was at a net loss. But the real thing here was that it validated that it worked. And I did get a referral to actually try this in the real world. All right, fast forward to June of 2024. And after weeks of some negotiation with the venue that Kennedy referred me to, I finally did get the placement. We went live with the venue in June of 2024. And this is a restaurant with a restaurant/bar. It had like a stage that they do karaoke nights. They have live bands perform there sometimes. And they also had a speakeasy in the back. So it was a pretty sizable restaurant, and it got busy from time to time for sure. And it was in a nicer side of Dallas. And I was able to pay out Kennedy the $25 for the referral. So the first few months that came in, we started seeing some of the revenue come in. So like from May and June of 2024, I averaged about $12 a month gross. So this is before Stripe. This is before the franchise payout as well, at 30%. July was my best month for the year, and that was of 2024, and I made $14 gross. And I know you guys are all looking at me, it's not a lot of money. I know it's not a lot of money, but there is some more context that I can give you to explain why things went the way that they went. So let me go on to the problems that I had. One thing that I noticed right away is a lot of times I would check in. I just want to check in and see how it's doing, because obviously I just got it out there. And I saw like maybe 2 to 3 weeks in that my machine was offline. And I was like, odd. Let me call the manager to see like what's going on. So I called the manager. They said, oh, we got the bar wet. So the bar is going to be shut down for however long it takes to get that plug fixed. And I was like, okay, well, this should be pretty quick because without a bar, the restaurant is going to be losing a substantial amount of money. So they went ahead and I called in a week later, the bar was still not fixed. And I was like, odd, but okay, sure. So they finally got it fixed like 2 weeks after the fact. And then I called them and I was like, okay, so the bars, you said the bar's fixed, so can I plug back in my machine? And they was like, we tried to plug it back into the bar. When we plugged it into the bar, it tripped the circuit breaker. So we was like, okay, that's weird. So I went up there to fix that. And when I came up there to fix it, next thing you know, they moved I fixed it by bringing a new one because they got my actual cord wet, which shorted the cord. So I had to bring a new one up there, and I brought like a plastic bag to put around it temporarily because obviously I didn't want it to get wet again. So I did that. And I was like, okay, that's kind of odd. You know, things happen, sure, whatever. I'll be more prepared now. I got a bag on there and I'll come back and order a little case to cover it. So I ordered the case to cover it. I bring it back in and then I come back and I can't remember if it's like this time, but I just know at some point eventually they moved my machine from the front bar where it was very visible. They moved it to the back of the restaurant, at the very back in the speakeasy on the table, just by the back door. And I was like, okay, why did you move it? It was like, well, it just couldn't be here, it was in the way. And I was like, you know what, sure, it's my only venue. It is what it is. Let me at least put a sign where the station used to be saying if you need a charge, go to the back. Cause you know, people was using it. Not every single day, but people were using it. So it was, I placed a sign there, went to the back, plugged it in, back in, had it online. And then next thing you know, a couple weeks go by and once again, I checked the dashboard, this guy's offline again. And I'm like, what's going on? I was like, why is it offline? And I was like, oh, we had to move it again. So now they put it in the speakeasy bar at the back. And I was like, okay, well, can we like plug it in? And it was like, yeah, you don't have to come over here, you plug it in. And I was like, okay, I checked a couple days later, it was never plugged in. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is it not plugged in? So I come up there, I plug it in myself, and now it's back at the back bar. And it was just like weird to me because it's like, this is a machine that you just, I come in, I put it down, I plug it in, and I leave it alone. So I didn't understand why they kept having to move it. And despite all of that, it was still able to bring in a little bit of money because even with all of that going on, in March of 2025, I had $16 gross, was the best month, but obviously my months ranged from like $6 to $14, which is not great. And some months I almost saw like nothing because there was a point in time, or I think almost the whole month or most of the month, that the machine was unplugged or not visible to customers and the speakeasy wasn't open every day. So it was just kind of tough for me to really be making money. And I had months in October 2024 where I made $2. And I had months in January 2025, I made nothing. And it was still interesting because over the 16 months, I still made $92 gross, which gross just means before any expenses whatsoever. So it was just interesting because obviously the math is not working out for that venue, but I really do think that the machine wasn't given a fair shot just because of all of the things that were going on with this establishment. So we're gonna go a little bit back in time and actually talk about what was going on in the midst of this. So right after the launch event, I would say less than a month or so after the launch event, so like March or early April of 2024, Chas reached out to me and he just had a straightforward conversation with me. He was just honestly saying, look, man, like, I'm glad we started the business together, but unfortunately for me, I just don't have the time to really put into this business to get the sales that are needed. And right now, at the time, I didn't have the venue side because it was March, not June. So at this time, we had nothing going on. He's like, I feel like I'm not really pulling my weight, and I just don't want to necessarily be sitting here and just sitting on these machines knowing I can't do the best that I can do. And he was like, look, I just need to go ahead and just exit out of this agreement. You can have the machines and just give me some type of compensation for it, and we can just work out a deal there. So this ended up happening to me, so I wasn't upset about it. I always appreciate honesty, and it was one of the things where both of us was like, yeah, we don't necessarily have the strength in sales, and that's okay. So I ended up having to save my own money to buy him out, and he ended up putting in the same like $5,100 that we originally put in, but we only cared really about the machine cost. And the final like buyout ended up being $1,850. And I ended up paying him on August 23rd of 2024 after he sent me the machines back. And that ended up cutting ties there. And now I'm fully owner of the the business and I don't have to pay anybody out. But now all 20 machines are in my possession, everything's on me, and I'm still working on getting that first venue. But this is just something that I'm also going to be honest about, because it's not always smooth sailing when it comes to businesses, and you always have different things going on. So in an attempt to try to be creative and try to do something else, I actually ended up going, talking with my mom, and we was just ideating on ideas. One of the ideas that we really had was to talk with event coordinators to be able to have our machines with them as they do different events. So one of the similar event coordinators I kind of know about is like talking with my friend Lucky. So I've known Lucky as well. Once again, I have great friends. Lucky I've known since I was like also 6, probably even younger, because we used to play basketball together, and he's a successful DJ. So I ended up talking with him and saying, hey man, this is my idea. This is my machine right here. I think it'd be a cool idea to just kind of go out to some of your gigs with you and put this machine out, let the venue owner see it. And then the money you make off the rentals for that particular venue, you can, I'll give you a revenue split of that. But the real goal here is to really get these into other businesses. And when I get it into those businesses, I'll give you a referral bonus, kind of like what I've already done for Kennedy. And that will be the way for you to really make money going forward. So it's interesting because when I went down that route, I also got connected. My mom connected me with Steve McKnight, who was down at K104. So I even got to present this in front of other DJs at K104. And it was interesting because it's the same deal to them as well. They would get a referral bonus and they would get a revenue split of anything that they made during that particular gig. But I just kind of realized it wasn't necessarily sustainable, because at this point I'm departing from it being its own like passive income, because now I have to literally physically go there, or I have to trust that I can hand this equipment off to DJs. And then one feedback I did kind of get from Lucky and even other DJs is like, they already have enough equipment as is. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to have them carry more equipment. And that's when he was talking about like, maybe I can get them like their own bag and put this in the bag so they can easily carry it and not have to worry about damaging it and anything like that. But it just, to me, it just didn't make the most sense to go ahead and invest also more into being able to make this portable, taking more risk with the machine moving around, because it's not even designed to really be doing that. And just looking at the numbers, like I probably had my machine at like 4 or 5 of Lucky's gigs, and the total revenue for that was like $24. So it just didn't really make the most sense to continue forward. But it was interesting to at least see that other people can see the value in my idea, and then even give me the chance to be in that space. But at the time, the events that I was in were a little bit smaller, but it was still cool to just see that like even in those 2 or 3 hours, right? Like somebody would use it, right? And it was something that I just was trying it out and it just didn't work, but it was still a cool experience to just be like, I tried it, I saw the feedback, I know it doesn't work, and we keep moving. Fast forwarding to September 2025 and another event happens. I get a call from the one venue placement that I do have my machine at, and the one I've been constantly checking up on and trying to figure out what's going on. And they called me and said, look, you need to pick up your machine, because if it stays here any longer and you ask about it and I tell you that we don't know where it is because we don't own that space anymore, I just don't even want you to be in that situation. And obviously that's code for my business is about to go, it's about to go out of business, right? Fast forward to September 2025, and I receive a call from the one venue that I do have a placement at. And this is also hilarious. This is not in the camera shot whatsoever. We're gonna put this back here so you guys can actually see it. But as I was saying, I got a call from the one venue that I actually have a placement at. And the thing that he was telling me was, I want you to come pick up your machine, because if you call up here in a few weeks or call up here at a later time and we tell you we don't know where your machine is at, or it's locked behind XYZ door because we don't own the space anymore, I just don't want you to be in that situation. So obviously he was telling me that his place was closing down pretty soon. So I set up a time to come up there and meet with him to grab my machine. So I went up there on September 11th of 2025, went and grabbed the machine, and now back to 0 placements, back to 20 machines in storage again. And now I'm not making anything to pay off those network fees, right? So now I'm facing the reality that I'm 2+ years in business, and my investment so far is that $5,102 to start, another $3,228 in 2024, and then also in 2024 I bought my partner out for $1,850, and in 2025 I spent $1 under $3,000. So now I'm looking at $13,179 that I spent so far to only really get back $171 before expenses of, paying people out, like the revenue splits with the venue, or paying the DJ, Lucky, right, for the money that he made, and just other events, because I also had casual events in my house where I just had my machine out and people actually rented them, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't know people would support me like that. That's pretty cool that people always value convenience. And then also the launch event itself. So that brought in $171, but the net of that was $68.52. So now the total loss is $13,110, right? And this looks horrible because it is. So what am I going to learn from this, right? Like, if I got to learn and move forward, then I got to go ahead and see what am I learning from this. The realization is that I've been trying to make this business work for several years, right? I thought the plan was very simple, is to pitch to venues, get placements. I know that not everything is going to be successful in sales, but I didn't realize how hard it is to get over that rejection that just comes with sales, even when having a great product, and just being consistent through that rejection. And that's just something that I just really struggled with. And for me, I know I'm an engineer. I know that I am great at being able to build and scale things through automation and digital systems. But I just know that dealing with churned effort, or even effort that's not always going to yield a result, is something that I struggle with. And it's kind of hard for me to I just really needed to really just accept the fact that I don't need to be good at everything. Like, I need to also be able to delegate tasks to other people that can succeed in these fields where I can't. And I do think this business can still work, but obviously I need to at least have the business out in the real world to even know if it's actually going to work or not. And there's something that I wasn't thinking about as well. It's like, obviously this money has to come from somewhere, and all this money was coming from my personal self and funding this. Like, yes, over 3 years, $13,000 is not the worst, but it is money that I'm throwing away when I could have had that $13,000 now as an emergency fund. I could have had it in a stock market. I could have done so many different things with it rather than just kind of having it in a failed business. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm slowing myself down for my own financial journey with this business, and it's something that needs to change. And it's ironic because I was talking with my financial advisor, which we'll get into in a later episode, but I was talking with my financial advisor and he was giving me advice like, look, it's okay. If you want to keep this business, it's fine. But now you need to find another way to fund it that's not coming from your personal finances, because you're dragging yourself behind with funding this business from your personal. And that's kind of what clicked to me, is that now, in order for me, I want to be able to have somebody else help me with the sales, but I don't want to dig myself in a deeper hole from my own finances, because now I'm slowing down, building my retirement fund, or building like my brokerage fund, or any other investments that I can make to help myself be more financially free. So it's one of the things that Brick just got moved to the back burner, and it honestly was already on the back burner for a while. But even when I got the motivation to start paying somebody to help me do sales, I really wanted to slow down and say, let me fund this from a source of income that's outside of my main job. So now I want to fast forward into 2026 and to why now I'm able to put the $2,200 to kickstart Brick again, and just what changed to put me in that position. So in late 2025, I landed my first web development client, in which I'm doing freelance work for this client, and I'm earning $3,000 a month of steady freelance income to be able to develop for this client. And we'll get more into that in a future episode, but it is something that I wanted to let you guys know that this is what changed for me, and it's by pure coincidence. But like I said, we'll get into that in a future episode. And now that set me up to actually start to reach out to freelancers to help me do sales for Brick. So the way I ended up doing this was through Upwork, and Upwork is just a platform of where freelancers and people who are looking for work to be done by freelancers can connect on a marketplace. So I tried this, and at first I put up an offer for $100 for 20 placements. So I would pay them for every machine that's placed. And this sat on the market for about a month and a half, and only had traction when I immediately posted it. And there was one guy that was interested, and I was working through doing contracts with him, and he got busy because this was over the winter break. And then by the time he got back from break, he said, well, unfortunately I'm busy, I can't do this anymore. But even then, during that time, I didn't really get anybody else that was interested. So what I ended up doing is just doubling the amount, because I was just looking and researching with, I use Claude for my AI tool. I know everybody uses an AI tool nowadays, but that's what I use. And I ended up just chatting with it to see like, why would nobody like bite on it? It's like, well, you're probably underpaying them if you really do the math. So I doubled it to $200 per placement and put the job back out there. And there's a feature on Upwork where you can invite people to look at your job listing, and they can send bids on the job. So I ended up inviting some people, and invited this one person that ended up submitting a bid. So when this person submitted a bid, his bid was a little bit higher than I wanted or projected or budgeted. And we ended up talking. When I ended up talking with him, I think he wanted something like, it's probably like 4,500 for like 25. No, I think it was like 5,400 for 2,500 leads. And well, it might have been a different number. I can't necessarily remember the number, but it was a high number for the leads. Ended up negotiating with him because I was like, look, I only have 2,000. This is like more than double of what I was budgeting for. So we ended up doing a smaller package where he reaches out to 1,500 leads, and he said he would do that for $2,200. So, I mean, I went over budget by $200, but it's fine. When I looked at this, his portfolio, because they allow you to do that on Upwork, he's done successful work for other clients. He had an 86% job success rate. So I went ahead and trusted it. The difference with this one is like, it was a different format than I wanted. So the bid was $2,200, but the catch is the milestones were different for the payouts. So the payouts were $700 for the first milestone, which was just to create the actual campaign. And then the second milestone was another $700 to launch the campaign. And then the third milestone is, I think it was $400 to have the campaign going for 2 weeks. And then the last milestone was the campaign was gone for a month, and that would complete the entire campaigns, because this campaign was only going to last for a month. I'm assuming that adds up to $2,200, but I essentially had that last payment split. It was supposed to be 7, 7, and 8. But I ended up splitting that last payment because he wanted everything at that 2-week mark, which didn't necessarily make the most sense to me. So I went ahead and did that. And this was interesting because his approach was different. When he creates a campaign, he doesn't do cold emails, because I ended up talking with somebody else that was going to do cold emails, and they asked me for a dollar system. I had no idea what that was. And when I looked it up, it was basically a way for them to automatically like type in the next number to be called and just be able to call people on rotation, which I was like, maybe that's the way you do it. But I looked into it, it was going to cost me like $200 a month just to give one person, which didn't necessarily make sense. And then after looking at it, it wasn't necessarily the best impression to give people, because this is like literally they would call like maybe 2,000 people or so, hoping that they would get like 10 to 20 people to say yes. Which in my eyes, now you're jeopardizing the looks of my company, because you're just spamming everybody, hoping and knowing that basically based off of numbers that some percentage of people are going to say yes. And I just didn't necessarily want to go forward with that after doing the research. So this guy is different because he is doing a different approach in which he talks to me about the clientele that I want. And then I tell him the clientele that I want, and he goes out and sets up a campaign. What his campaign does is actually goes to the contact me sites for all the potential clients that he could get me, and he fills it out, and then he puts in the email that I give him for people to reach back out. So when people reach back out to say that they're interested, then we can reply. He will filter down those emails to relevant people that say they were interested, and then I can go and just close. So this to me seemed way more targeted and made way more sense and seemed a lot more safe than me just sending out cold emails or doing cold calling. So as of today, I paid $1,400 because the email campaign was made, not email campaign, but the campaign was made and the campaign was launched. So we're hoping to see results within, he said within 2 weeks usually. And then this was different because this campaign was funded completely from another business that I had. The difference is this time Like for me, I've already put $13,000 down the drain. I wouldn't say down the drain, but I've already invested $13,000. I do have some equipment here, right? And instead of just letting this equipment just be like, oh, that's just a watch that's going to waste, you know, I was like, I might as well give it like one last push with somebody who actually knows what they're doing to get me in the door, so I can at least see if this actually works or not. And I feel like once I get them in the door, it'll unlock revenue to self-sustain itself. The math that I'm doing this off of is just based off of if this can get one rental a day on average at a given venue. And to me, that's more than reasonable to do. That's less than 7 people. That's 7 people in an entire week, right? And they're gonna be waves. Like if they get all the rentals on the weekend and they get like 20, 30 rentals on the weekend, that's more than enough to cover what I got. It doesn't need to be every single day, but at least the average of that. And to me, that's very reasonable considering the amount of foot traffic and the amount of people that would need a charge from their phone. And with that, if I do get that average of one a day, the amount it would pull in is about $119 a month after paying the franchise fees and the strike fees. And then the operating cost is $160 a month for all machines. So I got to divide that by 20, which should be about $8 a month. So that 120 minus 8 is like 111. So that's 111 in pure profit by itself. So if we look at that with all the machines placed, that's $2,380 a month. And then you got to subtract that $160 a month for all machines, and that'll be $2,220 a month. And that's over $26,000 in passive income if I decide not to scale and buy more machines. And this is like where I'm thinking in my head where the numbers are starting to align to me again, because now with me, now I just got to work backwards, right? Basically just saying, how many placements do I need to make this makes sense to me? And from this 2,200, if I only get 5 placements, which I think is very modest, I'm really shooting for 10 or more. But if I get 5, then the net income for that is $435 a month. And it's gonna take me 5 more months of saving that income to be able to afford the $2,200 again to get 5 more placements. So when you get to the second campaign launch, after that's successful, you'll have 10 placements total, and you'll have $1,030 a month coming in. And then you save again for 2 more months to be able to afford the next campaign, the third campaign, to get 5 more placements. At that point, you're looking at $1,625 a month. And then you need to save again for the last 5, which would be 1.5 months. And now you got all 20 machines placed, and now you're at the $2,220 a month. And then all I got to do after that is recover my initial investment of, you know, around $13,000 plus the $2,200, which the actual number is $5,379. And with the amount of money I'm bringing in per month, I will be able to pay it off in about 7 months. So if we look at the total timeline with the modest 5 placements, I get my money back in 15.5 months. And I would be able to just consistently be pulling in that $26,000 a year. At this point, it'd be passive because all the machines are placed. Granted, you know, there might be a restocking here and there, but it's a lot less work than what I'm trying to do now. The key insight here is just to really hone in on the fact that, like, I'm no longer risking my own money to do this. I'm able to pull this over from the freelance work that I'm doing and not put my financial plans on hold or set them back or even tie them to whatever Brick has got going on. And once that initial investment kicked off, Brick was actually able to pay the rest of the $6,600 to get the advertising out. So that is where I just can really just see that it's able to fund itself, and as it should, that should always be the goal, and it could kickstart itself off, and I can take it for wherever I want from there, because with the amount of $26,000, right, I could easily buy more machines of another 10,000 or so, and just continue to scale the process. There's a lot I can do, or I can take that money and move it on to other business ventures that I want to do. Putting this all together and taking away the lessons that I learned here is just, the first one I would say is that sales requires persistence, no matter what your product is or how easy your product is to explain, or even if it's free. The second thing I'll say is working with a partner, you need to both understand that you can have a plan all day long, but it's not always going to go according to plan. And if anything, it's always going to take more effort than the plan that you guys put out. And you need to both be prepared, or however many of you there are, to continue through all of the different curveballs that you'll get trying to start a business. The third thing I would say is just to know your strengths and weaknesses. This ties back into the first point, but my strength is not in sales. My strength is in being able to think through processes and systems and put them together. And just understanding that if that's not your strength, find a way to delegate it to somebody whose strength that is, and being able to do your own due diligence on knowing if that's actually their strength as well, to delegate that task to them. The other lesson I'll say as well is that the persistence is not only required in sales, it's required throughout the entire business life cycle. Like, you have to continue to be persistent even when times are hard, or even when you feel like you're getting no results. Just make sure that you have a plan and follow through with that plan, and be willing to make adjustments based off of the feedback or the reality, or really even just the reactions to what you have going on from what you're doing with your business. So looking forward to what we got going on today. Like I said, current status, 20 machines are sitting in storage, 0 placements. The freelancer campaign is underway. The total invested is $15,379. We made only $68.52, and we're still in the hole, $15,310. The plan is to let the freelancer go ahead and run a campaign that ends late February in 2026. And we are hoping to get 5 placements so Brick can start funding itself. Really, ideally 10, but if we get anything less than 3 placements, or even less than that, ideally even less than 5, we may need to just reevaluate the business altogether and see if it's something that we really want to continue with. But this time I'm giving it one more try with professional help. And like I said, if we do get the 5 placements, then we will just continue the process to do 3 more campaigns to get all the way to 20. And we can see, we've done the numbers earlier, that it'll take the 15.5 months. But the thing that's different about this time around is at least the money of the $2,200 that I'm putting in is coming from another business that I'm doing, and it's not coming from my personal. And we also saw that with the numbers, Brick should be able to support itself for the rest of the campaigns. And we can also see here my mindset as well of why I want to continue, because I've seen the model work in other scenarios. I've seen the model work even in a terrible scenario, because it only costs the machine $8 a month to run, and it still was making $14 on average for the months that the machine was actually plugged in and online. And honestly, it could also just be because I am stubborn and kind of want to see things through. But the bigger picture for me here is that I want to make sure that I have several streams of income. And this will be my 4th stream if I can get this established correctly, because right now I have my main job at Chewy as a software engineer. I have the real estate property that I have going on that we saw that even though I have a negative cash flow coming out, I'm still positive in the long run. And then we got the web client that I just told you guys about. And then this will be the 4th one. So just trying to diversify as much as I can. And I think this is still a good way to do it. And one thing to really just add to that is, like, financial freedom to me isn't just one big win, right? Like, this doesn't need to make all of the money for me to just be able to retire off of this business, but it's a bunch of small wins that compound together is the way you really get there. I think that's about all I want to cover for Brick today, but next week, we're going to be really taking you to mid-2025 when I talk with my financial advisor and got onboarded to having financial advisors for the first time, and just seeing how they could change my perspective on how I am moving my money, like how they introduced me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and just really change my perspective on how I'm going forth and thinking when it comes to my investments and my money and making a plan for my future. But as usual, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'm just curious, for those who started your own business, like, how was the process, whether it succeeded or failed? I just want to know your experience. And for those who didn't, or those who were interested in mine, how do you think that mine went? Do you think there's anything else that I could have done different? And just kind of curious what you guys think. But other than that, I will see you guys next week. As usual, thank you guys for watching Mickens Financial Journey YouTube channel. Peace.